Hello and welcome to CSE480. This video will be talking a little bit about what the course is going to cover. We're going to spend a fair bit of time talking about the syllabus, the different parts of the course, how the points come out, what is and isn't allowed, and talking a little bit about what's to come in the semester to come forward. Okay, so let's get started. Well, first off, hello, I'm Dr. Joshua Nahum. I'm a teaching specialist with CSE here at MSU. I and a bunch of TAs are going to be running this course. Please, if you have any questions, come ask questions. We'll have many hours of help room as well as help via Piazza. So even though this is an online course where I'm not standing in front of you giving a lecture, hopefully in combination with the videos as well as links to other helpful content, you'll be able to learn just as effectively, if not more so. Okay, so what are we going to be covering? Well, this is a class called Database Systems, and we're going to be talking a lot about databases for pretty obvious reasons. We'll be talking about how to use them, how they work, their different parts, when should you be using one type of database versus another, and some of the more advanced topics of what to do to make your database scale to handle very large data or very particular use cases. It's a lot to cover, so it's going to be more than just how do you write SQL queries? We'll be talking a lot more than just that, but you'll see as we go along. So why should you care about this class? Well, the primary reason, I imagine, is you need another 3-credit 400 level class in order for you to get your degree. And if that's the only reason you're taking the class, I understand. But my goal is to motivate you to care about the material as well. So what is some of the reasons why you should care? Well, one thing that's really nice is databases really combine a lot of aspects that you've been learning in different classes. We'll learn a lot about all of the algorithm theory that you learned in your 331 class. We'll be learning about design patterns and how to apply those from 335. We'll be talking about how to parse particular languages. For instance, if you've taken my compilers course, we'll be combining a lot of different aspects that you'll learn in bits and pieces all together in one place in a very practical purpose. Another thing is by solving the projects, especially in this class, you'll face many of the same sorts of problems that you'll encounter if you're developing, real software for a company, let's say. We'll be designing a project that takes place over multiple times, building on previous work, and ending up with an actually fairly complicated program that involves thousands of lines of code that you'll be definitely applying a lot of those how do I write good code in order to continue working on it. Another big advantage, and the reason why this class isn't just let's learn SQL, is I want to teach you a much more fundamental understanding about how databases work. Not just how to use them, but how to use them effectively and what sort of trade-offs are things that you're doing. So like when you learn how to write a loop in Python, that's great, but it's really important to understand, what makes some loops take longer than others. How should you be writing code if it's taking too long or it's using too much memory? We're going to be doing those same sorts of things for databases, which, to be perfectly honest, are often by far the bottleneck in terms of optimization for most applications you'll ever work with. Often it's the databases that are the slowest part, in part because they're made as fast as possible, but they're not magical. So being able to use databases effectively, that's to your benefit. And I just want to warn you right now that this is a 400 level CSE class. This class doesn't focus on exams. This class focuses on projects and homeworks. And projects and homeworks, especially if you're not as comfortable with Python as you used to be, might take longer than you would like. So make sure that you are not taking too many courses this semester. Make sure that you can set aside time from your work or whatever other things you have going on. So that you can work through the projects. They're worth doing, but they do take time. So I just want to give you the warning up front, and especially if your Python skill isn't very good, now would be a really good time to go through some tutorials and make sure you're up to speed with them. Okay, so who am I? I kind of introduced myself at the very beginning. My name's Josh. You can just call me Josh. That's fine. I'm a teaching specialist here, and what does that mean? It means that I actually don't do research for the department. I do a little bit on the side, but my primary job is to teach. And hopefully that means that I can be a better teacher than perhaps some of the other professors here. But at the very least, I'm devoting a lot more of my attention and time to it. So I am here if you need help. And once again, Josh is just fine. I don't need to be called doctor or professor or anything like that. Okay, another thing to make special note of this is an online enabled course, meaning there aren't going to be lectures, meaning this website, hopefully the way that you're watching this video, is how I'm going to be releasing all the materials to you. There is no textbook for this course. And this is a synchronized course, so I may have many of the weeks laid out. In fact, if you look at the website right now, it has many weeks laid out from the previous year. As the course goes on, I'm going to be revising that material. You're only expected to watch the current week's videos, and in fact, trying to get ahead might be to your detriment, as I may be replacing those videos with different content as we move through the semester. And the other really important thing is this isn't the first time this course has been offered in this way, and feedback that I've gotten from previous years is that although online courses are often really useful, you don't have to wake up in the morning to go to class. If you're busy, you can watch the videos at a time that's more convenient to you. However, it does take more discipline to get through the course. You need to set aside time to watch the videos, maybe re-watch them. You need to treat them like a lecture. If you take notes when you go to a lecture, take notes while watching the videos. I don't have a way to force you to watch them, but if you come to Help Room and it's clear, hey, you don't know what's going on, you haven't learned the concepts, it's not our job to teach you in Help Room or to teach you, in personal appointments. It's your job to ask for help if you need it, and that involves watching the videos or going to any of the secondary sources that we link to for, if the video doesn't make sense. Okay, so how does the grades work in this class? Okay. So the most important part of the class are the projects. It's worth half the points of your final grade. Another 20% are going to be homeworks. These are going to be weekly homeworks. There'll be at least 12 of them. And what we'll do is we'll take the top 10 highest scoring homeworks and count those. So basically it means you get at least your lowest 2 homeworks will be dropped. And there's also an exam that's going to take place sometime in 2/3 of the way through the semester, and we'll be talking about that as well. Projects. Alright, so most of the projects in this class, except for the first one and the last one, will be building an increasingly complex database management system. This is a program that will respond to SQL queries by either adding or changing data within itself or giving back responses to queries like the, find all of the men who are older than 17 stored in this database, things like that. It's a really interesting project because over time you have to implement, joins, you have to implement transactions and things like that in pure Python. The important thing to note is all of these projects must be done independently. Now, what does that mean? It means you need to be writing and understanding every line of code that you submit yourself. This applies to the projects and the homeworks as well. The important thing to note is you may ask questions on Piazza or may ask questions of other students. However, the line is you're not ever allowed to share code with other people or let other people see your code other than, of course, myself and the instructors. So if you have a bug that you just can't figure out, come to Help Room, ask one of us for help. If I find out that another student viewed your code or if you saw some other student's code, that's an academic dishonesty violation. If you don't come and say, hey, I made a mistake, I accidentally saw somebody's code, and we have to find out through things like plagiarism detection and things like that, you will fail the class. This is a 400 level class. There's not any warning period or anything like that. You will fail the class. So I'm emphasizing that now because every year I've had to fail 3 or 4, sometimes more students from each of my classes for cheating. And I want to make it really clear up front, please don't do so. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. Another important thing to note is that projects are always due at 10 p.m. on their due date. Not midnight, not noon, not summertime. It's always 10 p.m. And it's 10 p.m. on the dot. If it's at 10 p.m. and 1 second, it's late. Now, fortunately, projects have a late period, meaning you can, if you miss your deadline, and if you submit it within 24 hours of the deadline, you'll be losing 10% of the project's grade. And if you turn it in between 24 and 48 hours, you'll lose 20% of the project's grade. However, no project can be more than 2 days late, in part because I release solutions to the projects at that point so that people can start on the next one. Okay, so that is projects. What about homeworks? Well, homeworks are submitted through Memer Classroom, much like the projects, and they're always due at 10 p.m. on Thursday. They're given out every week. There will be at least 12 homework assignments, but only the top 10 grades will be used. Any others will be dropped. All right? And the important thing to note is there is no late period for homeworks. Okay? So if you haven't submitted the assignment by 10 p.m. on Thursday, you'll possibly receive a 0. Sometimes there may be ways to, Memer was sometimes autosave and submit it on your behalf at the deadline. So, but safest thing to do, finish the homework before 10 p.m. on Thursday, click that submit button. There's also an exam. Now, there's no final in this class. It makes finals week a lot easier with regard to this class. However, there is one exam about 2/3 the way through the semester. It's open note, meaning you can bring all of the notes, any books or things like that that you want to the exam. Details can be found on the link on the schedule page. We'll talk more about those details as the exam gets closer. One really important thing to note is to pass this class, meaning to get any grade besides a 0, you need to get at least 50% of the points on the exam. All right, so that's a little bit scary, but to be honest, the exam scores in this class are generally fairly high. However, if you fail the exam, meaning you get less than 50% of the points, there's an appeal process and things like that described in the syllabus. I wouldn't worry about it unless it happens. All right, another big topic that I need to talk to you about here, in part because I would love for this be the first class that I don't need to fail anybody for cheating. But to be perfectly honest, cheating is a huge temptation, and especially in CS courses, so I'm going to be checking and I will be failing students if you cheat. So please, let's make this year a nice year. Do your own work. Okay? You're welcome to look for help. You're welcome to seek help from other people. However, you need to cite them. You need to put in the top of your file, hey, this website was really helpful, or this person was helpful, and describe how it was useful to you. Okay? If you're unsure whether or not a particular resource is allowed to be used, ask. We will not be upset if you're like, hey, this is this really nice solution I find. Am I allowed to use it? And we'll almost certainly say yes. However, if it's found that you are using work or modifying work that you found without citing it, that's plagiarism, that's academic dishonesty, that's something that will fail you from this class and likely have other repercussions as well. Relatedly, do not copy or even view any other student's code or answers. You're not allowed to use code implemented by somebody else, use codes really in any way without citing them. And you're especially not supposed to use code from other students in this class or previous semesters of this class. The whole point of the homeworks and the projects in the exam is to test your abilities and to have you learn by solving. And if you're subverting those processes by finding other people's solutions, you're being academically dishonest and you aren't doing the work that this course is giving you a grade for. That's cheating. That's an academic dishonesty report. That's you failing the class. And so, to make note of this, I want it to be scary because I don't want people to do this, but, we will be using plagiarism detection software. We'll be looking for if your solutions match previous year solutions, if your solutions match other students in the class, if your solutions match any sort of code that looks related that we can find online. Breaking these rules will result in a final grade of a 0. This is a 400 level class. We're expecting you to be honest. You're very close to graduation. You're very close to going out in the workplace. We don't want to be giving degrees to cheaters. So, in light of that, I want to talk about one very specific form of cheating. Now, there's many others, but this is one that I've had to take a lot of action with in previous semesters, and that's websites like Chegg. So there are websites where you can post assignments or homework problems and things like that, and other people will solve those answers. Sometimes you have to pay a subscription to see the solutions. Chegg.com is one website that has been a kind of a constant thorn in my side in many classes. One thing I want to note is posting content from this class, posting homework questions and things like that to websites like Chegg is illegal. In fact, you can read Chegg's terms of service, and it says, the only content you're allowed to post there is content you hold the copyright for. And I guarantee you, none of you as students in this class hold the copyright to anything that I write. That's a copyright held by MSU. And so if I find, and I have an account on Chegg and I'm checking it and other websites that are similar to it, if I find my content there, I will take legal action against whoever posted that content. Relatedly, viewing, using, altering solutions found on websites like Chegg, even if you didn't post the content, but you see a solution on Chegg because somebody else posted it, that's also academic dishonesty and likely plagiarism as well. And if it's discovered that you are viewing solutions, and that's there's ways for me to find out, and I've had to fail people for doing things like that, that will result in you failing the class. I have no tolerance for things like that. In this class, Chegg is not allowed, and websites like it are not allowed in any form whatsoever. I want to make that really clear here, because it's really easy for me to find out who posted content to Chegg, and it's really easy for me to tell if you looked at solutions on Chegg and plagiarized or had those solutions influence your thought. There's a lot of very sophisticated tools we have where you can also get information directly from Chegg as well. And this is something to warn you about, that all of your classes right now are starting to check for people cheating using websites like Chegg. Alright, so sorry to be a big downer on that. I just really don't want to fail anybody for doing this year, but I'm going to be checking regardless. Alright, what else do you need to get by in this class? Alright, so the things that I'm kind of expecting you to know to some degree is I need you to know how to use Python 3, specifically Python 3.6. I also am expecting you have some basic ability to use the Unix command line, like you can use cd and run Python and move files around and things like that. And what we're going to be teaching you here in this class is how to use a database, specifically the SQL programming language. We'll be implementing a simple database system to kind of see how databases actually work. And we'll do a lot of comparisons to various different database systems, including some NoSQL style systems. Now, I told you that there's no textbook for this class, though there is a recommended textbook. This is kind of the best book on databases. It's really useful if you like the concepts and you want to delve deeper into them. You don't need to get this book by any means, but if you're having trouble with the course content, especially on the more complicated parts, like when we get into transactions and things like that, it may be worth picking up this book as well. But once again, that's entirely up to you. Another thing I want to talk about is the way that I have these videos lined up is I'm going to have multiple choice questions throughout the lecture. And these are opportunities for you to pause the video, think about what the right answer is, and then play the video and see what the answer was. It's a good way for you kind of to test your knowledge as you're moving through. So here is an example multiple choice question. Which of these can be turned in late? And I'm going to stop for a second, and if you need to rewind the video or look at the syllabus, you can do so, and then I'll reveal the answer. Alright, so it definitely doesn't make sense to turn in an exam late, you know, and when the timer runs out on the exam, you have to turn in the exam then, else you get a 0 on the exam. But specifically, homeworks cannot be turned in late, but projects can. Projects have a maximum 2-day late period. Alright, so that's it for this admittedly very long video. Please read the syllabus. There's more content in there that I didn't talk about. You are responsible for knowing the syllabus, and it has content in there with regard to how to handle disabilities, the academic, more details on academic dishonesty and what's allowed and not allowed in this course. So please read that before moving on to the actual course content. Thanks everybody, and good luck.